Once, gods ruled the world. Contrary to what we believe, they didn't just watch from the heavens or issue commands to mortals. They directly governed humans for over 2,000 suffer years. Who were these kings with such incredible timelines? What were their reigns like? How was it possible for some rulers to reign for tens of thousands of years each? And most importantly, were they human? Welcome to the most mind-boggling archaeological mystery of our age. A shocking discovery that challenges everything we know about human civilization, ancient history, and perhaps even our origins. Today, we're diving deep into the Sumerian King List, a document that dares to claim the world was once ruled by beings who lived for thousands of years. But this isn't just mythology or folklore. This is an official historical record, carved in stone, that makes a seamless transition from impossible lifespans to verifiable history. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and prepare for your worldview to be completely shattered, because what you're about to discover will change your perspective on ancient history forever. Part Beer. The discovery that shook the world in the early Bindukuzus, the world was not ready for what was coming. In modern-day Iraq, deep within the ruins of ancient Nippur, a team of archaeologists, led by Hermann Hilbrecht, made a discovery that would challenge every logic humanity knew. Imagine this. You're excavating layers of sand and debris that have accumulated for thousands of years. As the relentless Middle Eastern sun beats down, your team carefully clears the earth, revealing what appears to be small clay fragments, no more than 6 inches when pieced together. But these were no ordinary clay fragments. This was the Weld-Blundell prism, a 4-sided clay document that would soon be known as the Sumerian King List. And the information on these tablets? It challenged every textbook, every history lesson, and every assumption about our ancient past. Inscribed on this prism was a list, a simple list, you might think. But this list compressed the names of kings, actual rulers recorded in unofficial, impartial tone. These were not myths or legends passed down through oral tradition. This was a formal historical document, as official as any government record you would find today. What dropped scientists' jaws wasn't just the detailed names and descriptions of dozens of rulers spanning thousands of years. It was the numbers. Absolutely impossible, mind-boggling numbers. According to the King List, some of the earliest rulers reigned for tens of thousands of years each. How could this be possible if the average human lifespan is around years? Did this imply these kings were non-human? If so, what exactly were they? Let me paint you this picture. According to the King List, the first 6 rulers governed the world for a total of 2,000 years. Some reigned for 6 years, others for 2 years. One king alone ruled for 0 years. To put this into perspective, recorded human history only dates back approximately 0 years. But here's the twist that makes everything even more mysterious. The document makes a seamless transition from these impossibly long reigns to names and dates that modern historians can actually verify. Later kings, like the famous Gilgamesh, have human lifespans, and archaeological evidence supports their reigns. So here's the million-dollar question. If the latter half of the list is real and verifiable, on what basis can we simply disregard the first part? This points to a chilling possibility. Perhaps these longer-lived kings were not human at all. Perhaps they were something else entirely. Partiki. Who were the Sumerians? Before we delve deeper into these mysterious kings, let's talk about who the Sumerians actually were. Because understanding this ancient civilization is crucial to grasping the magnitude of what we're encountering. The Sumerians were one of the earliest civilizations to emerge in the world. They lived in the region of Sumer in southern Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq and Kuwait. These people flourished between Dirtbin BC and Binyaduzali BC and were absolutely revolutionary for their time. Think about this for a moment. While most of humanity was still living in caves and hunting with stone tools, the Sumerians had already developed the earliest known writing system, the wheel, complex irrigation systems, advanced mathematics and astronomy, sophisticated city planning, elementary schools and libraries, legal codes, and government systems. They literally invented civilization. But here's where things get really interesting. For a long time, historians tried to portray the Sumerians as just another human civilization that happened to be particularly advanced. Because of this assumption, one would naturally expect the Sumerian kings to have lifespans similar to those of other humans throughout history. But with the king list's emergence in the early Bindikazus, everything we knew about the Sumerians was suddenly called into question. Why were the reign years of their first Sekiz kings so impossibly long? And why did they record these numbers with such mathematical precision? In response, mainstream historians typically dismiss the first 8 kings as purely symbolic, a metaphorical storytelling effort by an early civilization to explain its origins. But this explanation falls apart when you actually think about it. Why would the Sumerians use mathematically specific reign durations to denote fantasy? It makes absolutely no logical sense. And here's what makes it even more astounding. The Sumerians weren't the only civilization to record rulers with impossibly long lifespans. The Babylonians, Hindus, Egyptians, and even the Bible all speak of rulers who lived for thousands of years before a great flood. Yes, that's right. The same great flood that features in cultures all around the world, from the biblical Noah's Ark to similar stories in Hindu, Greek, and Native American traditions. According to the King List, this global catastrophe occurred at a very specific time, right after the reign of the Sekiz king ended. And here's the real kicker. This timing aligns with known geological evidence of massive sea level rises around Suffer BC. With such compelling evidence supporting the King List, we should no longer ask, is this just mythology? Perhaps the real question we should be asking is, who truly ruled the world before us? Part 3. The mathematical precision that changes everything. Let's talk about something mainstream archaeology desperately wants you to ignore. The mathematical precision of these ancient records. When the Sumerians recorded these impossibly long reign durations, they weren't just throwing out random large numbers to impress people. Each reign duration is on exact multiple of Altuyuz years, what the Sumerians called a sar. Look at this pattern. Alalim ruled for exactly Sekiz, Sekizyuz years, which is precisely Sekiz sar. Alalgar ruled for exactly Otuzalta, Suffer years, precisely On sar. And Mennuanna ruled for Kirkuch, Ikiyuz years, precisely Oniki sar. And Men Galanna ruled for Yermesekiz, Sekizyuz years, precisely Sekiz sar, and Dumuzid ruled for Otuzalta, Suffer years, precisely on sar. This is not coincidence. This is not mythology. This is systematic record-keeping using a precise mathematical system. So why Altuyuz years? What is so special about this number? Here's where things get truly mind-boggling. Because the number Altuyuz appears throughout ancient cultures as a sacred cosmic cycle. It's associated with the precession of the equinoxes, planetary orbits, and celestial mechanics that ancient people supposedly knew nothing about. Some researchers believe this Uch Althusier cycle represents the orbital period of a mysterious planet called Nibiru, the alleged homeworld of the Anunnaki. According to this theory, these beings would return to Earth every Uch Althusier years, which explains why their reign durations were measured in multiples of this cosmic cycle. Think about it. If your natural lifespan was that of an immortal being teed to cosmic cycles, rather than biological aging, wouldn't your reign durations follow celestial patterns instead of human lifespans? The mathematical precision continues when you realize that the 8 pre-diluvian kings ruled for a total of Ikkiuskirkbir, Ikkius years. This number is also not random. It represents precisely Altmushiedi Sar. Another perfect mathematical relationship. Ancient Hindu texts called the Puranas describe similar impossibly long lifespans for early rulers. Egyptian king lists include dynasties of gods ruling for thousands of years before human pharaohs took over. Even the Bible recounts pre-diluvian patriarchs, each living for nearly suffer years. But here's what's truly shocking. When you map these ancient chronologies from different cultures around the world, they all show the same pattern. Extremely long lifespans in the earliest periods, followed by a gradual decrease in lifespans, then a catastrophic flood marking the transition, and finally much shorter human-like lifespans after the flood. This is not cultural borrowing or mythology. These are multiple independent sources recording the same historical reality from different perspectives. Part Dirt. Alulim, the first king of Earth now. Let's meet the beings themselves. Let's begin with the first name on the Sumerian King List. Such a monumental figure, heralded not just as the first king of a city, but of the entire world. His name was Alulim, and according to ancient records, he reigned from the city of Eridu for a staggering year Sikizu's years. But Alulim wasn't just any ruler. Ancient tablets portray him not as a tribal leader who fought his way to power, or a warrior chief who conquered his enemies, but us, a figure of extraordinary wisdom and stature, elevated by what's called celestial authority. Here's what truly makes this remarkable. The Sumerians explicitly state that Alulim came to power not by birth, but by selection. He was appointed by the gods. He was not chosen by humans. This points to a system of governance entirely different from anything we've seen in human history. According to Sumerian creation myths, Eridu existed before cities arose, before written language existed, and before humans even knew how to make a wheel. The Sumerians believed it was the first city ever built on Earth. But here's the twist. It wasn't founded by wandering human tribes. It was built directly by divine command. Imagine this. Eridu, where temple foundations now lie buried under sand and time. Legends say Alulim ruled from a magnificent ziggurat that shone under the sky. This wasn't just a palace or a government building. It was described as a place where heaven touched earth, a direct interface between the celestial and the terrestrial. If this sounds like science fiction to you, wait until you hear the archaeological evidence. Modern excavations at Eridu have unearthed foundations dating back to approximately Beshbinderd years BC. But what's truly mind-boggling is the sudden complexity of these structures. The layout, the engineering, the astronomical alignments all point to a prior knowledge, advanced knowledge that shouldn't have existed in human history at that time. This feeds the theory that under kinks like Alulim, Eridu might have functioned as something far more significant than just another ancient city. Some researchers believe it could have been a landing point, or even a colonial outpost for a non-human intelligence. Think about it. If you were an advanced extraterrestrial civilization looking to establish control over a primitive planet, wouldn't you start by building sophisticated operational bases? Wouldn't you appoint governors to manage the local population? In the 1970, author Zecharia Sitchin put forth a radical interpretation that sent shockwaves through archaeological circles. Base it on his controversial translations of Sumerian texts. Sitchin proposed that kings like Alulim were not human at all. He argued that they were members of an extraterrestrial race called the Anunnaki, who came from a distant planet named Nibiru. Mainstream scientists dismiss Sitchin's work, but his theory addresses something traditional archaeology cannot explain. How do you explain the sudden emergence of advanced civilization? How do you explain the mathematical precision of these ancient records? How do you rationalize the impossibly long lifespans? If Alulim's reign of Yermasekiz, Sekizu's years is true, then we are dealing with an entirely different kind of being, one whose biology, whose very nature, operated on cosmic timelines rather than terrestrial ones. Whether you accept the extraterrestrial theory or not, one fact is undeniable. Alulim represents the beginning of something unprecedented in human history. He was not just the first king of Eridu. He was, according to these ancient records, the first ruler of our entire planet, Part Besh. Alalgar, architect of divine rule, when Alulim's incredible reign of Yermasekiz, Sekizu's years came to an end. Kingship did not return to the heavens. Instead, it transitioned to a new city that would become legendary for reasons that continue to baffle archaeologists even today. The crown passed to another extraordinary being, Alalgar, who would even surpass Alulim's tenure and establish the template for divine governance that would last for thousands of years. His name was Alalgar, and according to the Weld Blondel prism, he ruled the world from the same city of Eridu for an even more staggering duration of Adazalta, Suffer years. This means precisely 10 Sar, which continues the precise mathematical pattern that makes these records so remarkable. But Alalgar wasn't just Alulim's successor. He was something far more significant, the architect who transformed divine kingship from an experimental concept into a permanent institution. Consider what this means. If Alulim was the pioneer who established the first extraterrestrial colony on Earth, Alalgar was the master builder who made it permanent. Under his reign, Eridu didn't just survive, it flourished and became a template for all future civilizations. Ancient Sumerian texts describe Alalgar as a figure of immense power and vision. He's credited with shaping the foundational principles of governance, spiritual order, and city planning that would influence human civilization for millennia. What's truly fascinating about Alalgar's reign is this. While there's limited information about his personal life in the archaeological record, his influence permeates every aspect of early Mesopotamian culture. His name appears on multiple versions of the King List, demonstrating that his legacy was too important to be forgotten or altered over time. But what was Alalgar's governance actually like? How do you govern for Adazalta, Suffer years? Under Alalgar's protracted reign, Eridu transformed from a simple settlement into something unprecedented, the world's first true city. But this wasn't urban development as we understand it. Archaeological evidence points to something far more sophisticated and deliberate. Structures built during this period were not merely functional buildings. They were precisely aligned with celestial bodies, mirroring constellations, and following astronomical patterns that wouldn't be discovered by human science for thousands of years later. Temples, the city's layout, even the placement of residential areas, everything followed a cosmic blueprint. If Alulim lit the spark of divine kingship, Alulgar built the engine that would power human civilization. He didn't just rule from the heavens, he quite literally built heaven on earth, starting with Eridu. But here's the truly interesting part. Archaeological excavations have revealed that Eridu contains some of the oldest temple foundations ever discovered, dating back to approximately Beshbin-Durduz BC. What's mind-boggling is the sudden complexity of the architecture, the engineering principles, the mathematical precision, the astronomical alignments all point to knowledge that supposedly shouldn't have existed yet. This presents a huge problem for traditional archaeology. How do you explain the emergence of such advanced construction techniques fully formed without evidence of gradual development? How do you explain astronomical knowledge predating organized astronomy by thousands of years? The extraterrestrial theory offers a compelling answer. If Alulgar was indeed a member of the Anunnaki, as Sitchin proposed, then Eridu was not merely a city, but a carefully planned operational base. The advanced architecture was not a result of human ingenuity, but on application of extraterrestrial technology and knowledge. Think about it. If you were to establish a long-term presence on a primitive planet, wouldn't you build structures that could withstand millennia? Wouldn't you align them with cosmic patterns important to your homeworld? Wouldn't you establish a design template that could be replicated across the planet as your operations expanded? During Alulgar's Otuzalta, Sıfır reign, we see precisely this. Eridu became the prototype for every major city that followed. Uruk, Babylon, and countless other cities followed the same basic template established during this period. But Alulgar's influence extended far beyond just architecture and city planning. During his reign, fundamental concepts of law, governance, and social organization were established. The idea of divinic kingship, the relationship between rulers and subjects, the role of temples in society, all these foundational elements of civilization can be traced back to the patterns established in his time. What's truly remarkable is how incredibly sophisticated these governmental and social structures were, far more advanced than you would expect from a supposedly primitive society. They included complex legal codes, administrative hierarchies, economic systems, and religious practices that wouldn't be out of place in a modern civilization. This suggests that Alulgar wasn't learning to govern through trial and error, as a human ruler would. Instead, he was implementing a fully developed system of governance, perfected elsewhere, perhaps on his homeworld of Nibiru. The mathematical precision of his Otuzalta, Sıfır reign, also raises fascinating questions. Why exactly Tinsar? Was this a standard tour of duty for these colonial governors? Was it related to cosmic cycles important to the Anunnaki? Or did it represent something deeper about the nature of these beings and their relationship with time itself? Whatever the truth, one thing is clear. Alulgar's reign represents a pivotal stage in human history. Under his guidance, Earth transformed from a world of scattered primitive tribes to a planet with its first true civilization. He didn't just rule over humans, he fundamentally changed what it meant to be human. If these ancient records are accurate, Alulgar was more than just a king. He was our planet's first urban planner, its first architect, its first social engineer. He was the being who took Alulim's initial colonization effort and built it into the foundation of human civilization. Part Alta. Enmenluana, master of sacred metals with the incredible Otuzalte, suffer-year reign of Alalgar, finally concluded divine kingship did not remain in Eridu. Instead, it moved to a new city that would become legendary for reasons that continue to baffle archaeologists, even today. The crown passed to Enmenluana, the Uhtred pre-diluvian king, and he ruled from the mysterious city of Bad Tibera for an even more astounding duration of Kirkich, Ikiu's years. This means precisely Onikisar, the longest recorded reign duration on the entire king list, and a number far too precise to be coincidental or symbolic. But Enmenluana's significance goes far beyond just his incredible lifespan. He represents something that would fundamentally alter the relationship between the divine and the material world. Bad Tibera was not just another city. According to ancient Sumerian texts, it was the city of the sacred forge, the place where divine metallurgy and celestial materials were first introduced to Earth. Under Enmenluana's governance, this wasn't just a governmental center. This was humanity's first industrial complex. Consider what this means. While Alulim established divine rule and Alalgar created urban civilization, Enmenluana introduced something entirely new: advanced technology, specifically metallurgy and material science that shouldn't have existed for thousands of years. But here's what's truly mind-boggling. Archaeological evidence shows the sudden and fully formed appearance of sophisticated metalworking techniques in Mesopotamia without any period of gradual development. Bronze alloys, precision casting, advanced smelting techniques all appeared as if someone flipped a switch and introduced industrial technology to a Stone Age world. Unlike previous kings, who are remembered primarily for their spiritual or governmental roles, Enmenluana was celebrated as the divine teacher of crafts. Ancient texts credit him with teaching humans the art of divine metallurgy, of transforming raw earth into tools, weapons, and sacred objects through fire and force. But this wasn't just about making better tools. In Sumerian culture, metallurgy was considered a sacred art, a bridge between the earthly and the divine. The ability to transform base metals into precious alloys, to shape matter through fire and force. This was seen as a godlike power. In many ancient cultures around the world, metallurgy is consistently portrayed as a gift from the gods: the Greek Hephaestus, the Egyptian Pa, the Hindu Vishwakarma, the Norse dwarves. All bear striking resemblances to the divine metalworker archetype that Enmenluana represents. But here's what's truly fascinating. These mythological figures are not just described as skilled craftsmen. They are consistently portrayed as coming from somewhere else, possessing knowledge that couldn't have developed naturally on Earth, and teaching humanity technologies that transformed civilization overnight. Consider the implications of Enmenluana's Kirkuch Ikiu's year reign in Bad Tibera. If these records are accurate, for over Kirk suffer years, the world had an industrial hub governed by a non-human being with advanced knowledge of materials science. This was not primitive metalworking. It was sophisticated engineering rivaling modern capabilities. Recent archaeological discoveries have only deepened the mystery. Ancient sites throughout Mesopotamia have yielded metal artifacts displaying a precision and sophistication that shouldn't have been possible with the tools and techniques supposedly available at the time. Some artifacts show evidence of machine-like precision that would require advanced equipment for their production. Even more intriguing are the unusual alloy compositions found in some ancient metalwork. Jertane artifacts contain combinations of metals, including trace elements, that would need to be deliberately added rather than occurring naturally, requiring advanced metallurgical knowledge to create. This has led some researchers to propose the idea that Bad Tibera under Enmenluana was not just an ancient city, but an advanced materials research and production facility, the kind of operation a technologically superior civilization would establish if they wanted to upgrade the capabilities of a primitive planet. But Enmenluana's influence extended beyond just metallurgy. Ancient texts also credit him with introducing advanced mathematics, engineering principles, and construction techniques. The sophisticated architecture and city planning that began in Eridu reached new heights during his reign in Bad Tibera. It's particularly intriguing that Bad Tibera is referred to in later Mesopotamian texts as one of the Anunnaki's significant operational centers. According to these narratives, it was not merely a human city ruled by divine kings, but an active base where extraterrestrial beings conducted their activities on Earth. The Onikisar duration of Enmenluana's reign also raises fascinating questions. Why exactly Kirkuch Ikiyu's years? Was this a standard operational period for major industrial projects? Did it correspond to certain cosmic cycles important to the Anunnaki? Or did it represent the time required to fundamentally transform a planet's technological capabilities? Archaeological evidence suggests that the metalworking techniques introduced during Enmenluana's time influenced not just Mesopotamia, but the entire ancient world. Similar sophisticated metallurgical practices appeared in Egypt, the Indus Valley, and even distant regions like Peru and Bolivia, often with striking similarities pointing to a common source of knowledge. This global dissemination of advanced metallurgy in the same general period is difficult to explain with traditional theories of independent development. It is far more consistent with the idea of a coordinated technology transfer program guided by a superior civilization. Whether you accept the extraterrestrial interpretation or not, Enmenluana's reign represents a pivotal turning point in human development. Under his guidance, humanity transitioned from using simple stone tools to creating sophisticated metal technologies that would form the basis of all future industrial development. If these ancient records are accurate, Enmenluana was more than just a king or even a teacher. He was humanity's first industrial engineer. He was the being who introduced us to the transformative power of advanced materials science. He was the divine metalworker who quite literally forged the technological foundation of human civilization. Partide. Enmengalana, the celestial astronomer after Enmenluana's incredible Kirkuch, Ikiyu's year reign of industrial revolution, divine kingship, remained in Bad Tibera, but it took on an entirely different character. The dearth pre-diluvian king, Enmengalana, would reign for Yermesikiz, Sikizyu's years, and introduce humanity to knowledge that wouldn't officially be discovered for millennia later. Even his name tells us everything we need to know about his role. Enmengalana means master of the celestial me. It directly links him to celestial knowledge and divine wisdom. In Sumerian tradition, Me refers to the fundamental laws and decrees that govern the universe. Sacred knowledge that ensures civilization functions in harmony with cosmic forces. But Enmengalana was not just a custodian of divine knowledge. He was humanity's first astronomer, the being who taught our species to read the skies like a cosmic textbook. Think about this for a moment. While human tribes were supposedly just learning to plant crops and domesticate animals, Enmen-Galana was introducing mathematical concepts, astronomical observations, and celestial mechanics that would form the basis of modern space science. Under his Yermesikiz, Sikizüz year reign, humanity first learned to track celestial cycles, predict eclipses, map constellations, and understand the intricate rhythms of the universe. But this wasn't primitive stargazing. It was sophisticated astronomical science rivaling modern capabilities. Archaeological evidence from this period shows the sudden emergence of complex astronomical observations, mathematical calculations, and celestial alignments that demonstrate knowledge far beyond what early humans should have possessed. Stone circles, temple alignments, and ancient calendars display a precision that would require an advanced understanding of celestial mechanics. Surviving Sumerian astronomical texts from later periods contain remarkably accurate information. Calculations of planetary orbits, lunar cycles, and stellar positions are so precise that modern astronomers can use them to verify historical astronomical events. So how did supposedly primitive humans acquire such detailed knowledge? The answer becomes clear when you consider Enmen-Galana's role as the divine teacher of celestial knowledge. If he was indeed a member of an advanced extraterrestrial civilization, he would have brought with him astronomical knowledge, accumulated over thousands of years of space travel and cosmic observation. But Enmen-Galana's influence extended far beyond just astronomical observation. Ancient texts also credit him with establishing the fundamental principles of mathematics, geometry, and engineering that would form the basis of all future scientific development. The sophisticated mathematical concepts that emerged during his reign were not just practical tools for construction and agriculture. They included complex geometric principles, advanced calculative methods, and mathematical relationships that wouldn't be rediscovered until the classical Greek period thousands of years later. This sudden emergence of advanced mathematical knowledge is one of the greatest mysteries of ancient history. Mathematical concepts that should have taken centuries of gradual development instead appeared fully formed, as if someone downloaded a complete mathematical education into human culture overnight. What's particularly intriguing is that many of these mathematical principles have direct applications for space travel, celestial navigation, and cosmic engineering, precisely the kind of knowledge you would expect from an advanced spacefaring civilization. The timing of Enmen-Galana's reign is also significant. Yermesikiz, Sikizüz years, the exact same duration as Alalim's original reign, precisely 8 Sar. This points to a deliberate pattern, suggesting that these reigns were planned according to specific cosmic cycles rather than random historical occurrences. Some researchers believe these cosmic cycles correspond to the orbital period of Nibiru, the alleged homeworld of the Anunnaki. If this theory is correct, Enmen-Galana's reign would have encompassed precisely 8 orbital cycles of his home planet, a duration of time that would allow for extensive astronomical observation and knowledge transfer. During his reign, the foundations of what would become the world's first observatories, astronomy schools, and scientific institutions were laid. Ziggurat temples built during this period were not just religious structures, but sophisticated astronomical observation platforms designed to track celestial movements with remarkable precision. These ancient observatories display construction techniques and astronomical alignments that would require advanced engineering knowledge. The precision of their celestial orientation, the mathematical relationships built into their dimensions, and the sophisticated observational capabilities they provided suggest the application of advanced scientific principles. What's truly remarkable is that the astronomical knowledge introduced during Enman-Galana's reign was not confined to Mesopotamia. Similar sophisticated astronomical observations and mathematical principles emerged simultaneously in Egypt, the Indus Valley, China, and even the Americas, often with striking similarities that point to a common source of instruction. This global dissemination of advanced astronomical knowledge in the same general period is difficult to explain with traditional theories of independent cultural development. It is far more consistent with the idea of a coordinated educational program guided by beings with superior knowledge and global reach. The legacy of Enman-Galana's reign can be seen in the fact that every major ancient civilization developed sophisticated astronomical and mathematical capabilities that appear suddenly in the archaeological record. From the Egyptian pyramids to the astronomical alignments of Stonehenge, from the Mayan calendar to the astronomical texts of ancient India, all show evidence of the same underlying knowledge base. Whether you're a Scorpio, a Sagittarius, looking at your horoscope, or navigating by the stars, the likelihood that these practices trace back to the astronomical revolution that occurred during Enman-Galana's Yermesekis, Sekizyu's year reign in Bad Tibira, is very real. This wasn't just a king counting seasons or making up stories about the sky. This was a cosmic engineer who understood the universe at a level humanity wouldn't officially reach for thousands of years. He was the celestial teacher who gave our species the tools to understand our place in the cosmos and to navigate by the same stars that guided his own journey to Earth. Part Sekiz. Dumuzid, the shepherd who conquered death after Enman, Galana's incredible Yermesekis, Sekizyu's year reign of cosmic enlightenment, divine kingship, again underwent a dramatic transformation. The best pre-diluvian king would become one of the most enigmatic and influential figures in all of human mythology, a being who transcended the boundaries between ruler and god, mortality and immortality. His name was Dumuzid. He's also known as Dumuzi the Shepherd, and according to the King List, he reigned from Bad Tibira 4 Atazalta, 0 years. But Dumuzid's significance goes far beyond his impressive 10 Sar reign. He represents something that would fundamentally challenge our understanding of life, death, and resurrection. Thousands of years before these concepts became central to major world religions. Unlike his predecessors, who are remembered primarily for their technological or astronomical contributions, Dumuzid became legendary for something far more mysterious and profound: his relationship with death itself. Ancient texts describe him not merely Asa, ruler, but Asa, being who died, and was reborn in an eternal cycle, symbolizing the rhythms of existence. But here's what truly makes Dumuzid's story mind-boggling. His myth was not confined to Mesopotamian culture. Variations of his story appeared in nearly every major civilization that followed, from the Egyptian Osiris to the Greek Dionysus, from the Norse Balder to the Celtic Cernunnos, and eventually to the Christian narrative of Jesus Christ. The core elements are remarkably consistent across cultures. A divine king who sacrifices himself for his people, descends into the underworld, and is resurrected to life in a triumph that renews the world. This is not cultural borrowing or coincidence. These are multiple independent sources recording variations of the same fundamental archetype. According to Sumerian mythology, Dumuzid's transformation from king to god began with his relationship with Inanna, the powerful goddess of love and war. Their divine love story was not merely a romance. It was a cosmic drama that would set the template for myths of death and resurrection throughout human history. The most famous version of this story is found in Inanna's descent to the underworld, one of the earliest written narratives known. When Inanna decides to conquer the underworld, she must die to enter that realm. But Hair Death threatens to destroy the upper world, so the other gods arrange for Hair Resurrection, but only if someone else goes to their death in Hair place. Dumuzid is chosen for this sacrifice, condemned to spend half the year in the underworld, while his sister Geshtinanna takes his place for the other half. This eternal cycle of death and rebirth forms the mythological explanation for the changing of the seasons, the agricultural cycle, and the fundamental rhythms of life itself. But here's what's truly fascinating about this story. If Dumuzid was indeed one of the Anunnaki, as proposed by the King List, this myth may not be pure symbolism. It may be describing actual events. Perhaps it involved advanced technology that allowed for controlled death and resurrection, or interdimensional travel between different planes of existence. Consider the implications. If an extraterrestrial being possessed technology that could reverse death, transfer consciousness between different states of existence, or manipulate the fundamental processes of life and death, wouldn't such capabilities appear magical to primitive humans? Wouldn't they interpret such demonstrations as divine miracles? The shepherd aspect of Dumuzid's identity is also significant. Throughout ancient cultures, the archetype of the shepherd represents the ideal ruler, one who guides, protects, and sacrifices for his flock. But Dumuzid wasn't just metaphorically shepherding humans. According to some interpretations, he was quite literally managing the human population, much like a shepherd manages his animals. This tees into one of the Anunnaki theory's most controversial aspects, the idea that these beings not only ruled over humans, but also created and managed our species for specific purposes. If this interpretation is correct, Dumuzid's role as shepherd takes on a far more literal and unsettling meaning. The duration of Dumuzid's Otuzaltu, suffer-year reign, raises its own intriguing questions. This represents precisely Ansar, the same length as Alalgar's reign. Was there a significance to this specific duration? Did it represent the time required to establish a certain type of control over human populations? Or did it correspond to cosmic cycles important to the Anunnaki? What's truly remarkable about Dumuzid is that his influence transcended his original role as king. Unlike the other pre-Diluvian rulers, who remained primarily historical figures, Dumuzid was increasingly deified into a god in his own right. He became the god of vegetation, fertility, and the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. This process of deification was not merely cultural evolution. It represented something fundamental about how humans interacted with these extraordinary beings. Dumuzid's demonstrations of power over life and death were so awe-inspiring, so far beyond normal human capabilities, that he was worshipped as a divine force, rather than merely remembered as a historical ruler. The theme of resurrection associated with Dumuzid would eventually become central to many of the world's great religions. The idea of a divine being who sacrifices himself, descends to the realm of death, and is resurrected to life as a triumph over immortality. This concept appears with remarkable consistency across cultures supposedly with no contact with each other. This suggests that the Dumuzid archetype represents more than just mythology. It might be a collective human memory of actual events, demonstrations of advanced technology, or capabilities so extraordinary that they formed the foundation of humanity's understanding of the divine. Archaeological evidence from Dumuzid's period shows continued advancements in agricultural techniques, animal husbandry, and population management. The sophisticated systems for managing large human populations that emerged during this period suggest administrative capabilities far beyond what should have been possible for early civilizations. Whether through advanced technology, superior knowledge, or capabilities we still don't understand, Dumuzid represented a fundamental expansion of what was possible. He was not just a king who reigned over life. He was a being who seemed to have mastery over death itself. If the ancient records are accurate, Dumuzid was not just a mythological figure or a symbolic archetype. How was a real being whose demonstrations of power over the fundamental forces of existence were so extraordinary that they formed the template for humanity's understanding of resurrection, redemption, and eternal life. He was the shepherd king who guided humanity not just in life, but in the ultimate mystery of death and rebirth. He established the patterns and beliefs that would influence human spirituality for thousands of years to come. Partdokas. Antediluvian, guardian of the lost city after Dumuzid's remarkable Autosalto, 0 reign of death and resurrection, divine kingship again, took a mysterious turn. The Altoth pre-Diluvian king would rule from a city so enigmatic that, despite intense archaeological searches throughout Mesopotamia, it has never been found. His name was Mesopotamia, and according to the King List, he ruled from the lost city of Larak for Yermesikis, Sikiz's years. This means, previously, Sikiz, Sar, the same duration as both Alolim and Enmen Galanna, suggesting a deliberate pattern in the cycles of cosmic governance. But what truly makes Mesopotamia fascinating is not what we know about him, but what we don't know and the place he supposedly reigned from. Larak is one of 5 pre-Diluvian cities said to have existed before the Great Flood in Sumerian mythology. Yet, no physical trace of it has ever been discovered. Consider the implications of this. For Eridu, Bad Tibera, and the other ancient cities mentioned in these texts, we found archaeological evidence. We can visit their ruins, examine their foundations, and study their artifacts. But Larak? It's as if it vanished from the face of the earth entirely, leaving behind only elusive references in ancient texts. This is not just an archaeological riddle, but a mystery that challenges our very understanding of ancient history. If the Sumerians held Larak in such high regard as one of their most sacred cities, if they considered it important enough to include in their most official historical record, what could have happened to cause it to disappear so completely? The few surviving references to Larak in ancient texts describe it as the city of healing and judgment, possibly connected to Ninurta, the god of war, agriculture, and divine law. But these brief mentions only deepen the mystery rather than resolving it. Some scholars have suggested that Larak might have been located in northern Mesopotamia, possibly near the Tigris River. Others propose it might have been entirely metaphorical, a spiritual stronghold rather than a physical location. But no explanation adequately accounts for why such an important city would leave absolutely no archaeological trace. Here's where things get really interesting. Some researchers have proposed a far more radical explanation for Larak's disappearance. They suggest it wasn't just another ancient city, but something far more significant, a fundamental component of what they call a global energy grid. According to this theory, cities like Larak and Eridu were not just political centers, but functional parts of an ancient technological system designed to regulate natural and spiritual energies across the planet. If this interpretation is correct, Ensipadsidana was not a traditional king. He was a maintainer of balance, a technical administrator who maintained cosmic harmony through advanced technology. This would explain why Larak has never been found through traditional archaeology. If it was primarily a technological facility rather than a conventional city, its remnants might be buried far deeper, constructed with materials that don't preserve well, or built using techniques that leave no discernible trace for modern archaeology to recognize. The idea of ancient global energy grids might sound like science fiction, but it's based on observable patterns in how ancient sites are distributed across the world. From Stonehenge to the pyramids, from Angkor Wat to Machu Picchu, many of the most significant archaeological sites are positioned according to precise geometric relationships, suggesting deliberate global planning. If the Anunnaki were indeed on advanced extraterrestrial civilization, establishing long-term operations on Earth, such a global infrastructure would make perfect sense. You would want strategically distributed monitoring stations, communication networks, and energy management systems for the planet. Ensipadsidana's 28 reign would have provided ample time to establish and maintain such a system. The fact that his reign duration perfectly matches Alalim's and Enmen-Galana's suggests these might have been standardized operational durations for specific administrative roles. But there's another possibility even more intriguing. What if Larak didn't vanish to time and archaeology, but was deliberately concealed? Ancient texts from various cultures describe cities or realms that exist in different dimensions, accessible only to those with special knowledge or abilities, or hidden from ordinary human perception. Could Larak have been such a place? If Ensipadsidana possessed advanced technology that allowed him to operate from a location somehow phase-shifted or dimensionally isolated from normal reality, this would explain both the historical references to the city and the complete absence of physical remains. This might sound fantastical, but consider what we know about the other pre-diluvian kings. They exhibited capabilities that seem impossible by conventional standards. Extremely long lifespans, advanced technology, cosmic knowledge, and apparent mastery over life and death. Why not also the ability to exist in hidden or alternate dimensions? The timing of Ensipadsidana's reign is also significant in another way. His governance came after the introduction of urban civilization, advanced metallurgy, and cosmic knowledge to humanity, but before the more dramatic transformations that would occur under the final pre-diluvian kings. He represents a period of consolidation and system maintenance. This aligns perfectly with the idea of him being a technical administrator rather than an innovator. While his predecessors brought revolutionary changes to human civilization, Ensipadsidana's role might have been to ensure these systems functioned smoothly and maintained their efficacy over cosmic timescales. The mystery of Larak also raises broader questions about how much of ancient history remains hidden from us. If such a significant city could vanish without a trace, what else might be missing from our understanding of the past? Archaeological surveys using modern technology have revealed that vast areas of the forest areas ancient world remain unexplored beneath layers of soil, sand, and sediment. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imaging, and other advanced techniques are regularly discovering previously unknown ancient sites. Could Lorik still be out there, waiting to be found? Or perhaps, even more intriguingly, could it still be active? If the theories about ancient global energy grids are correct, sites like Lorik might not be archaeological remnants at all, but could be active facilities that continue to operate according to their original programming. Whether concealed by advanced technology, buried by time, or existing in dimensions we don't yet understand, Lorik represents one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world, and its guardian king, Ensipodzidana, remains one of the most enigmatic figures in human history. His Yirmisikis, Sikizuzir reign, might not have introduced revolutionary new technologies or knowledge like his predecessors, but he might have been equally crucial for maintaining the complex systems that allowed human civilization to develop and flourish under Anunnaki guidance. He was the guardian of the lost city, the keeper of hidden knowledge, the administrator of cosmic balance during a critical period in humanity's development under extraterrestrial guidance. Parton. Enmenduranna, the king who ascended to heaven after Ensipodzidana's mysterious Yirmisikis, Sikizuzir guardianship of the lost city of Lerik, divine kingship, again transitioned to another of the 5 sacred pre-diluvian cities. The Yedith king, on the Sumerian King List, would become one of the most extraordinary figures in all of ancient literature, a being whose story would echo through religious traditions for thousands of years. His name was Enmenduranna, and he reigned from the city of Sippar for Yirmabir, Suffer years. While this might seem like a shorter reign compared to his predecessors, he represents something far more significant than just duration. Enmenduranna would become legendary not for how long he reigned, but for how his governance ended. According to ancient Mesopotamian texts, Enmenduranna did not die like ordinary mortals. Instead, he was taken up to heaven without experiencing death. This phrase should sound remarkably familiar to anyone acquainted with biblical literature. The parallels with the biblical Hebrew patriarch, Enoch, are absolutely striking. Both figures are described as righteous rulers who walked with God. Both are said to have received divine wisdom directly from celestial beings. And most remarkably, both are recorded as having been taken directly to heaven without experiencing death. But here's what truly makes this mind-boggling. The Sumerian accounts of Enmenduranna predate the biblical stories of Enoch by thousands of years. This suggests either that the Hebrew scribes were drawing from much older Mesopotamian sources, or that both traditions were recording the same actual historical events from different cultural perspectives. Let's examine what the ancient texts tell us about Enmenduranna's extraordinary relationship with the divine realm. Unlike previous pre-diluvian kings, who were primarily portrayed as rulers and teachers, Enmenduranna is described as having a continuous bond of communication with celestial beings. According to Mesopotamian sources, he was regularly initiated into the secrets of the gods, learning advanced knowledge about divination, astronomy, and celestial patterns through direct instruction from these supernatural beings. But this wasn't just spiritual communication. The texts describe literal physical encounters with beings of advanced knowledge and technology. The most intriguing claims about Enmenduranna suggest that he traveled to the heavens using some form of craft or vehicle. Ancient accounts speak of him being lifted into the sky with apparatus that allowed him to observe the world from above and gain a cosmic perspective on the nature of reality. If we interpret these narratives literally rather though symbolically, they describe something strikingly similar to space travel. An advanced extraterrestrial being taking a human ruler aboard a spacecraft, showing him the planet from orbit, and sharing knowledge about cosmic principles that would not officially be discovered for thousands of years later. The city of Sippar, where Enmedarena reigned, was known throughout Mesopotamian history as a center of learning and astronomical observation. Ancient texts describe it as home to advanced libraries, scientific institutions, and repositories of cosmic knowledge. Archaeological evidence confirms Sippar was indeed a major intellectual hub with sophisticated astronomical capabilities. But Sippar was not merely described as a city of learning. According to some ancient sources, it served as a kind of interface between the earthly and celestial realms, a place where communication and travel between dimensions was possible. This links into the broader theory that the pre-Diluvian cities were not just urban centers, but components of an advanced technological network established by the Anunnaki. If Eridu was the administrative capital, Bodtipera the industrial hub, and Larek the hidden technical facility, then Sippar may have been the communication and transportation hub. Enmedarena's role as the administrator of such a facility would explain his unique relationship with celestial beings and his ultimate ascension. Rather than a miraculous religious event, his ascension might have been a planned personnel transfer, an extraterrestrial administrator returning to his home base after completing his assignment on Earth. The duration of his Yirmibir, Suffer-year reign, is also significant. Unlike the other pre-Diluvian kings whose reigns were exact multiples of the Uch, Altius-year Sar cycle, Enmedarena's governance lasted for Yirmibir, Suffer years, which was not a precis multiple of the Sar cycle. This unusual fraction might represent a specific assignment duration rather than a standard administrative term. What's particularly fascinating is how Enmedarena's story influenced later religious traditions. The concept of righteous individuals being taken directly to heaven without dying became central to many belief systems. From the biblical accounts of Enoch and Elijah to similar stories in Hindu, Buddhist, and Islamic traditions, the pattern established by Enmedarena echoes throughout human spirituality. But this also implies that later religious interpretations might be missing the most significant aspect of the original story. If Enmedarena was indeed an extraterrestrial returning to his homeworld, then his ascension was not a supernatural miracle, but advanced technology at work. The knowledge Enmedarena reportedly received during his celestial journeys included detailed information about future events, cosmic cycles, and the ultimate destiny of civilization on Earth. This prophetic knowledge would later be incorporated into various apocalyptic and eschatological traditions within human culture. Again, if we interpret this literally rather than symbolically, it suggests that Enmedarena had access to advanced prediction capabilities, perhaps computer modeling, historical analysis, or even time travel technology that allowed him to observe future timelines and report what he discovered. The astronomical and mathematical knowledge associated with Enmedarena's reign represents another quantum leap in human understanding. The sophisticated celestial observations and calculations that emerged during his time in Sippar demonstrate knowledge that wouldn't be officially rediscovered until the advent of modern astronomy. Archaeological evidence from Sippar includes some of the most advanced astronomical texts ever discovered from the ancient world. These documents contain mathematical relationships, celestial calculations, and predictive models that rival modern capabilities. How did supposedly primitive humans acquire such sophisticated information? The answer becomes clear when you consider Enmendarinna's role as the bridge between earthly and celestial knowledge. Asan, extraterrestrial administrator with access to advanced technology and cosmic databases, he would be perfectly positioned to download sophisticated scientific knowledge into human culture. What makes Enmendarinna's story even more remarkable is its global impact. Similar stories of divine, kings, or prophets being taken directly to heaven appear in cultures worldwide, often with remarkably similar details, despite supposed lack of cultural contact. This suggests that Enmendarinna's ascension was not an isolated event, but part of a larger pattern of extraterrestrial contact simultaneously influencing multiple human civilizations. The consistent elements in these traditions point to shared experiences rather than independent mythological development. Whether through advanced spacecraft, interdimensional technology, or capabilities we still don't understand, Enmendarinna represents humanity's first recorded encounter with beings capable of transcending the normal limitations of space and time. His Yirmibir, Suffer-Year reign, established the patterns of divine-human interaction that would influence religious and spiritual traditions for thousands of years to come. But it's more than that. His ultimate ascension demonstrated that the boundary between earthly and celestial existence was not absolute. That with sufficient knowledge and technology, it was possible to traverse between different levels of reality. He was the king who walked between worlds, the ruler who served as humanity's first ambassador to the cosmic realm, and ultimately, the being whose journey to the heavens inspired countless generations of humans to look up at the stars and wonder about their own potential for transcendence. Part Onbir. Ubaratutu, the last king, before the flood, after Enmendarinna's miraculous Yirmibir, Suffer-Year reign of celestial ascension, divine kingship, returned to earth for one final critical reign before everything changed forever. The sickest and last of the pre-diluvian kings would preside over the end of an era that had lasted over Ikiyu's years. His name was Ubaratutu, and according to the King List, he reigned from the city of Shuruppak for Altayu's years. While this might seem like the shortest reign among the pre-diluvian kings, those years would be among the most pivotal in all of human history, because Ubaratutu was not just the last divine king. He was the father of the man who would save humanity from utter annihilation. Consider the weight of that responsibility. After almost 250,000 years of divine governance, after 7 extraordinary kings had established civilization, introduced advanced technology, shared cosmic knowledge, and demonstrated mastery over life and death, everything would come down to Ubaratutu's son and a single boat. According to multiple Mesopotamian sources, including the ancient Eridu Genesis, Ubaratutu was the father of Ziusudra, the Sumerian version of Noah. When the gods decided to destroy humanity with a great flood, it was Ziusudra who received the divine warning, built an ark, and preserved human and animal life through the catastrophe. This connection elevates Ubaratutu far beyond just another name on an ancient king list. He becomes the critical link between the pre-diluvian world of the gods and the post-diluvian world of humans. He was the patriarch of humanity's second chance, the father of our survival. But here's what's truly fascinating when you view this story through the lens of the extraterrestrial theory. If the Anunnaki were indeed alien beings who had governed human civilization for over Ikiyu's suffer years, then the flood represents something far more significant than just a natural disaster. It represents a deliberate reset of their entire planetary operation. Why would advanced extraterrestrial beings decide to destroy a civilization they had spent thousands of years building? What could have gone so wrong that their only solution was to wipe the slate clean and start over? Ancient texts offer some intriguing clues. According to various Mesopotamian sources, the decision to flood the earth was made because humanity had become too numerous, too noisy, and too problematic for the gods to effectively manage. But there are also darker undertones, hints that humans had become corrupted in some way, or had developed in ways that threatened the Anunnaki's long-term plans. Some interpretations suggest that unauthorized genetic intermingling occurred between the Anunnaki and humans, creating hybrid populations that were becoming too powerful or too independent. Others propose that humans had somehow gained access to knowledge, or technology, they weren't supposed to have, threatening the carefully maintained balance of power. If we accept these interpretations, the flood was not just population control, but genetic purification and information security rolled into one destructive operation. The goal was not merely to reduce human numbers, but to eliminate specific genetic lines and destroy accumulated knowledge that had become problematic. Ubaratutu's role in this scenario becomes even more critical. As the last pre-diluvian king, he would have been responsible for implementing the transition plan, ensuring the survival of the correct genetic material, and preparing for the post-diluvian reconstruction of human civilization. The city of Shuruppak, where Ubaratutu reigned, has been extensively excavated by modern archaeologists. Unlike the mysterious Larak, Shuruppak was definitely real, and its remains tell a remarkable story. Archaeological evidence shows that around Uchbin BC, the city was indeed devastated by a great flood, just as described in the ancient texts. But this was no ordinary flood. Geological evidence points to an event of extraordinary magnitude, requiring a massive displacement of water far beyond anything caused by normal river flooding. The scale of the destruction seen in the archaeological layers of Shuruppak suggests a catastrophe that simultaneously affected the entire region. What's particularly intriguing is that similar flood evidence appears in archaeological sites throughout Mesopotamia from the same general period. This wasn't a localized event affecting one city. It was a regional catastrophe simultaneously affecting multiple urban centers, just as described in the flood myths. The timing of this archaeological flood evidence also aligns remarkably well with geological data showing major sea level changes around Sifr 2 Aniki, Sifr years ago, around the end of the last Ice Age. Global meltwater pulses, catastrophic glacial dam breaches, and sudden ocean level rises all occurred within the same time frame described in ancient flood narratives. This convergence of archaeological, geological, and textual evidence suggests that the flood described in the King List was not just mythology, but an actual event of historical significance that fundamentally reshaped human civilization. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. The flood was not random or accidental. According to ancient texts, it was carefully planned and executed with specific provisions for post-catastrophe recovery. The fact that Ubaratutu's son received advance warning and detailed instructions for building a survival vessel points to sophisticated disaster management planning. If the Anunnaki possessed advanced technology, they would have had the capability to engineer such a catastrophe. Weather modification technology could have supercharged storm systems beyond natural limits. Directed energy weapons could have destabilized ice sheets and glacial formations. Even kinetic bombardment using asteroids or comets could have triggered the kind of climate disruption described in ancient texts. The most chilling aspect of the flood narrative is how calculated and systematic it appears. This was not random destruction. It was a selective culling with careful provision for post-catastrophe recovery. The fact that specific individuals received advance warning and detailed survival instructions suggests sophisticated disaster management protocols. Consider the logistics involved with Noah's Ark or similar survival vessels described in other traditions. These were not just boats. They were mobile genetic preservation laboratories designed to sustain breeding populations of multiple species through a global extinction event. The technical knowledge required to design, construct, and operate such vessels would have been far beyond the capabilities of Bronze Age humans. The detailed instructions given to the flood survivors also point to an advanced understanding of genetics, ecology, and environmental restoration. Specific animals to be preserved, duration of the journey, timing of emergence, and procedures for repopulating the Earth all indicate sophisticated planning based on scientific knowledge that supposedly didn't exist yet. Archaeological evidence worldwide shows clear signs of cultural disruption and population bottlenecks during the time frame indicated by the flood narratives. Advanced civilizations that had flourished for thousands of years suddenly vanished from the archaeological record, often with evidence of massive water damage and sudden abandonment. The Younger Dryas period, dating from approximately Oniki, 602 on 700 years ago, shows evidence of rapid climate change, mass extinctions, and cultural collapse across multiple continents. This time frame aligns remarkably well with the flood chronologies preserved in ancient texts around the world. But perhaps the most significant evidence for the reality of the flood is what happened afterward. The post-diluvian world described in ancient texts shows a remarkable pattern. Human civilization started fundamentally from scratch, yet with scattered remnants of advanced knowledge that appeared as if from nowhere. The sudden emergence of sophisticated agriculture, advanced mathematics, astronomical knowledge, and architectural techniques in post-diluvian civilizations suggests that some knowledge survived the catastrophe. But this knowledge appeared in fragmented form, as if carefully parceled out rather than freely shared. This pattern aligns perfectly with the idea that the flood was a planned operation rather than random destruction. If the Anunnaki intended to rebuild human civilization after the reset, they would have needed to preserve essential knowledge and technologies, while eliminating the problematic elements that necessitated the catastrophe. The King List itself supports this interpretation. After a brief phrase, "the flood swept over all," it immediately continues with a new section. After the flood swept over all, after kingship had descended from heaven, kingship was in Kish. Notice the language here. Kingship did not naturally evolve or develop after the flood. It again descended from heaven, just as it had at the beginning with Ululim. This suggests that the same extraterrestrial beings who governed the pre-Diluvian world were actively involved in re-establishing civilization after the catastrophe. However, the lifespans of the post-Diluvian kings were far shorter, typically hundreds of years rather than tens of thousands. This dramatic reduction might indicate either that the new rulers were more human-like, or that the Anunnaki decided to limit their direct involvement and govern through shorter administrative terms. The flood represents the most significant discontinuity in human history. It marks the end of an age when gods walked among men and directly managed human affairs. After the flood, The relationship between the divine and human realms would never be the same. The era of direct divine governance was ending, and the era of human independence was about to begin. But it also represents something else. Evidence that the human civilization we know is not our first attempt. We are survivors of a previous world, inheritors of fragments of a far more advanced civilization that was deliberately reset by its creators when it became inconvenient or problematic. The flood is not just the end of the pre-diluvian world. It was the beginning of our current era of limited knowledge, shortened lifespans, and reduced direct contact with the beings who created us. Part 13. After the flood, the New World Order. After the flood swept over all, after kingship had descended from heaven, kingship was in Kish. These words from the Sumerian King List mark the beginning of our current world, a civilization built upon the ruins of the one before, populated by the survivors of humanity's first great extinction event. But this new world was fundamentally different from the one that came before. The age of gods walking among men was over. The era of impossibly long lifespans was gone. The time of direct divine governance had faded into legend and myth. Yet the same beings who orchestrated the destruction of the pre-diluvian world were still there, still involved, still pulling strings from behind the scenes. They had merely shifted their methods of control from direct governance to indirect manipulation. The lifespans of the post-diluvian kings recorded in the Sumerian records were measured in hundreds of years rather than tens of thousands. This dramatic reduction suggests either that these new rulers were more human-like, or that the Anunnaki decided to limit their direct intervention in human affairs. However, even these shortened lifespans were extraordinary by modern standards. Kings reigning for Dirtyus, Altius, or Dokusyus years would represent beings with capabilities far beyond normal human limitations. The transition from pre-diluvian to post-diluvian governance appears to have been gradual rather than abrupt. What's particularly fascinating is how knowledge and technology were selectively preserved and reintroduced after the catastrophe. Archaeological evidence shows that sophisticated agricultural techniques, advanced mathematics, astronomical observations, and architectural principles all reappeared in post-diluvian civilizations, but in a fragmented form, as if carefully rationed rather than freely shared. This pattern suggests that the flood was not intended to permanently eradicate human civilization, but rather to reset it to more manageable parameters. The Anunnaki appear to have preserved essential knowledge and technologies, while eliminating the problematic elements that necessitated the catastrophe. The new civilizations that emerged after the flood, Sumer, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and others displayed remarkable similarities in their fundamental principles. Despite being geographically separated and supposedly having no contact with each other, they developed similar governmental structures, religious concepts, technological capabilities, and cultural practices. This consistency across multiple independent civilizations points to coordinated guidance from a common source. Rather than allowing human cultures to develop randomly, the post-diluvian world appears to have been carefully managed to ensure consistent outcomes. The Anunnaki's role in this new world order was more nuanced than their previous direct governance. Instead of serving as kings themselves, they appear to have worked through human intermediaries, chosen bloodlines, priestly classes, and royal dynasties who maintained contact with the divine realm while managing earthly affairs. This system of indirect governance had several advantages from the Anunnaki's perspective. It allowed them to maintain effective control over the human population while reducing their direct exposure and involvement. It allowed them to guide the development of civilization without taking full responsibility for day-to-day management and created multiple layers of insulation between themselves and potential problems. However, this new system also had a significant drawback. It was inherently less stable than direct governance. Human intermediaries could make mistakes, develop their own agendas, or lose contact with their divine overseers. Over time, the carefully maintained link between the earthly and celestial realms could degrade or become corrupted. Archaeological evidence suggests that this is precisely what happened. Early post-diluvian civilizations showed remarkable sophistication and coordination, but over time, they became increasingly fragmented and isolated. Advanced knowledge was gradually lost. Technologies were forgotten, and the direct connection to divine guidance became progressively weaker. This degradation was not accidental. It appears to be part of the plan. By gradually withdrawing their direct support and allowing human civilizations to become more independent, the Anunnaki could reduce their ongoing involvement while maintaining ultimate control through periodic interventions. The concept of cyclical history, which appears in many ancient traditions, may reflect this pattern of divine involvement and withdrawal. Periods of direct guidance and rapid advancement are followed by gradual decline and fragmentation, eventually necessitating intervention and renewal. From this perspective, human history is not a linear process of development, but a series of managed cycles designed to maintain the optimum balance between human independence and divine control. We advance to a certain point. Then we are reset or redirected before we become too problematic or too independent. The flood is the most dramatic example of such a reset, but it may not be the only one. Smaller-scale catastrophes, cultural collapses, and technological regressions throughout history might represent similar points of intervention orchestrated by the Anunnaki to keep human development within acceptable limits. The modern world we inhabit today might represent such a transition point. Our rapid technological development, our increasing global interconnectedness, and our growing awareness of our cosmic environment may be approaching the problematic threshold that necessitated the original flood. If the ancient patterns hold true, we can expect either another reset operation or a new phase of more direct divine involvement as we approach technological and cultural capabilities paralleling those of the pre-diluvian world. The King List is not merely recording ancient history. It may be offering a template for understanding our current situation and predicting our future trajectory. The same patterns that governed the pre-diluvian world may be at work today. The same beings who decided that the first human civilization had become too problematic may be making similar assessments about our current development. This suppression of information is not accidental. If humanity understood our true history, our true relationship with our creators, and the reality of ongoing extraterrestrial oversight, it would fundamentally change our perspective on ourselves and our place in the universe. It would shatter the illusion of human independence and force us to confront the reality of our managed existence. But perhaps this confrontation is precisely what we need. Perhaps understanding our true history is the key to transitioning from our current state of managed dependency to genuine cosmic citizenship. Perhaps the test we are undergoing is not about technological development or cultural advancement, but about whether we are ready to handle the truth about our origins and our ongoing relationship with our creators. The Sumerian King List may be a message, a clue, a trail of breadcrumbs left by beings who wish for humanity to finally understand its true situation and make informed choices about its future. The evidence is all there, preserved in clay tablets and stone monuments, recorded in myths and legends, encoded in astronomical alignments and mathematical relationships. The truth about our past, our present, and our future awaits those who dare to look beyond conventional explanations and contemplate the impossible. We are not alone. We have never been alone. We are part of a cosmic community that extends far beyond our tiny planet, and our development is being guided by beings whose wisdom, capabilities, and agenda operate on scales far beyond our comprehension. The age of gods directly ruling the world may have ended, but the age of divine guidance and cosmic citizenship is only just beginning. The question is not whether we are ready for contact with our creators. The question is whether we are ready to handle the truth about the contact that has been ongoing for hundreds of thousands of years. The Sumerian King List is just the beginning, the first chapter of humanity's true history, the opening section of our real user manual, the first lesson in our ongoing education about our place in the universe. What comes next depends on how well we've learned from the past, how clearly we see the present, and how wisely we prepare for a future that will be shaped by the same beings who have guided our development since the dawn of recorded time. The gods did not disappear after the flood. They are still here, still watching, still guiding our development towards goals we can barely imagine. The only question is, are we wise enough to recognize their continued presence? And are we mature enough to embrace the responsibilities that come with cosmic citizenship? The truth is out there, preserved for thousands of years, waiting for a generation ready to handle its implications. That generation might be us. The time might be now. The question is, are you ready to learn the truth about who we are, where we came from, and where we're going? The Sumerian King List is on invitation for you to find out. What do you think about these 8 extraordinary kings who ruled the world for Ikiyu's Kirkbeer, Ikiyu's years? Are you ready to dive deeper into the mysteries of our true origins and our ongoing relationship with beings who transcend the normal limitations of time and space? The journey into humanity's true history has only just begun. Keep your mind open. Question everything you've been told, and prepare to discover facts that will forever change the way you see reality. Because once you understand who we are and who has been guiding our development, you can never go back to the comfortable illusions of conventional history. You become part of the awakening, of the transition, of humanity's preparation for the next stage of its cosmic evolution. The age of ignorance is ending. The age of cosmic awareness is beginning, and it all starts with understanding the truth preserved in the Sumerian King List. Welcome to the real world, when gods ruled Earth for Ikiyu's Kirkbeer, Ikiyu's years. Welcome to your real history. Welcome to the dawn of cosmic consciousness,